We all have dreams, but dreams by their very nature can be difficult to achieve. That's where Access Credit Union comes in. Whether it's going to college, owning a car, or building your dream home, your local credit union can help you to fulfill your dreams. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Ger McCarthy, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to the Star Sport Podcast. My name is Ger McCarthy of the Southern Star, and I'm joined as always by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. Before we kick things off, I'd just like to give a gentle reminder to our listeners and viewers to please rate, review and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. The Star Sport Podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union pride themselves on delivering for their members. Speak to them today about funding your dream. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years. On this week's podcast, we're chatting to Ireland and Munster rugby legend Alan Quinlan about the two West Cork men, Fineen Wycherley and Gavin Coombes, in Andy Farrell's latest Ireland squad. Ireland take on Japan on Saturday and the USA a week later. So we'll ask Alan if he thinks Coombes and Wycherley will have a part to play. We'll also hear from Cork City assistant manager Richie Holland. The Bandon-man caught up with Ger McCarthy recently to chat about his career in coaching and his role with Cork City. But we have to start with the epic clash between Ireland's fastest woman, Phil Healy, and up-and-coming sprint star Rhasidat Adeleke in the final of the Irish women's 200 metres at Morton Stadium on Sunday. Kieran, Phil came out on top once again, securing her 14th Irish title, but she didn't have it all her own way against the young pretender.
This was a race for the ages, Jack. What an incredible duel. It pitted the two fastest women in Irish sprinting right now up against each other, Phil Healy and Rhasidat Adeleke. They didn't disappoint. It was being billed as their big showdown, and when they went head to head, I don't think anyone could have predicted how close this race could and was. In the end, there was 100 of a second between Phil and Adeleke, and it was Phil who came out on top. And the times were just simply stunning. The national record, which was set by Adeleke a couple of weeks back, is 22.96 seconds. And when she set that record, she beat Phil's previous PB. But on Sunday, Phil ran 22.83 seconds, which smashed the national record. Unfortunately, it won't stand because it was over the legal win limit. So the win limit was just over what they needed. But Phil ran 22.83 and Adeleke ran 22.84, which is absolutely stunning running by the both of them. But this was almost a moment where Phil said, I'm not going anywhere, because Adeleke is the young up-and-comer. She's 18 years of age. She's a sensational athlete, and she's a huge career ahead of her. Phil, 26, is 8 years her senior. And it was up the moment where Phil said, okay, you're good, but I'm still better right now. And it was quite an important win and moment for Phil, because it rubber-stamped her position as the queen of Irish sprinting. That was her second national title last weekend. She won the women's 400-metre title the day before. And that was probably a more important win in terms of the Olympics coming up, because that victory in the women's 400 metre will secure valuable ranking points for Phil as she wants to qualify in the 400 for this month's Olympics now. Jesus, the Olympics are starting in 23rd of July, so they're not too far away. And also this week, Jack, Phil will find out for certain how many events she will be entered in the Olympics. The cut-off qualification point was on Tuesday night. That's June 29th. So by Wednesday or Thursday, more likely Thursday, Phil will know for definite how many events she's entered in. So fingers crossed, it's the three events. It's 200, it's the 400, and it's the 4x400 metre Irish mixed relay. But she's on a high this week. I was texting her earlier in the week, and the word she likes to use is buzzing. She was absolutely buzzing because she's won 2 more senior golds. And now that's 14 senior gold medals that Phil has won. that's 2 hands and nearly a full foot that she has to use now to show how many senior titles that she has. So, like I said, she's the queen of Irish sprinting, and she's in great shape ahead of the biggest couple of weeks of her athletics career.
And the win over Adeleke was almost reminiscent of that famous From the Depths of Hell win that she had a number of years back, because although it wasn't quite as dramatic the distance she had to make up, she did have a lot of ground to make up on the Young Pretender, as we've said, and then just about pipped her on the line. There's a video going around online. The commentators are getting quite excited, as you can imagine, and as I'm sure anyone watching it was as well, because there is that dynamic of people wanting to see a young athlete bursting onto the national stage. But as you said, Phil is still number one, and she proved it beyond a reasonable doubt on Sunday. But you can just see that over the next couple of years, that rivalry is probably going to grow and grow. But for now, Phil remains Ireland's fastest woman, which bodes extremely well as the clock to Tokyo ticks down. But Kieran, let's just move on from that quickly, and we're going to hear, as I said, from Alan Quinlan in just a moment. But before we do, I just wanted to quickly get your take on the Euros so far. It's something we haven't actually spoken about on the podcast yet, but we can't ignore it anymore, because Monday's action, the 2 last 16 ties, was possibly the greatest day of watching soccer that there's ever been. 2 last 16 games back to back. The first between Spain and Croatia finished 5-3 to the Spaniards. And then the evening game between the Swiss and the French, 3-3 after extra time, the Swiss going through on penalties. Just 2 of the great international football tournament games. And I kind of wanted to get your own thoughts on them. It's hard to concisely say how one felt about the games, but what were your own thoughts after sitting through those 2 games on Monday afternoon and evening?
Oh, the drama was just incredible. Especially I thought the France and Switzerland game that evening, that second half, how that unfolded with Switzerland missing the chance to go 2-0 up, then France coming back going 3-1 up with the version of Paul Pogba that all Man United fans want to see at the club. But then obviously he was involved in the goal Switzerland got at the other end. And even then when it went to 3-3, both teams still had chances in injury time. Switzerland had a chance, and then France hit the crossbar at almost the last kick of the game.
That chance, which was the last kick of the game from Kingsley Coman, when it smashed the crossbar, I screeched so loud like a little child that I woke up my partner, who was in bed in the room next door, and she came out to see was everything okay, and I assured her everything was okay. But Kingsley Coman had just hit the crossbar after 90 minutes of enthralling action. So yeah, and I think one of the biggest travesties from the day, though, Kieran, I'm not sure if you'll agree with me on this, was that Karim Benzema's goal. Was it his first goal? The goal where he dragged it from behind him and flicked it over the keeper, which may have gone down as one of the great European Championship goals, will now be relegated to the dustbin of history because France were knocked out, and the goal is essentially, it didn't count towards France going on to win the championships. So I'm sorry to say that goal may not go down in history as it probably deserves to.
No, you're right there, but just the drama of it. You just on about the noises you made. I made noises on Monday night I'd never made in my life, and my better half, who was watching Love Island in a different room, came in to check on me. She was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, I had to fill her in on what was unfolding because it was absolutely incredible. And like you said, I think it was the greatest day of football I've ever seen because there was so much drama. Even go back to the first game, the Spanish own goal in the first half was like, you'd never see that, like a 45-yard own goal. But then for Croatia to come back from 3-1 down and get that goal in injury time, and even the manner of their second goal was just a kind of a schmozzle in the box, and it was like ping pong. It's just, they were 2 games that had absolutely everything. And I know sometimes people complain about football, this and that, but I'd argue anyone to sit down and not be entertained by what we saw on Monday. It was absolutely incredible. Just on a different note, I got Denmark in our pools draw here at home, and the good news is that the Danes are still going strong. On the softer side of the draw, I'll put it. So I'm firmly in the Denmark camp as this tournament progresses because there's money on the line here. So hopefully Denmark will get to the final. But it's turning into an epic tournament.
And then Denmark have every neutral on their side as well. So the world is cheering for Denmark at this stage because of the unfortunate events in the group stage with Christian Eriksen. But another point just before we wrap on the Euros that I want to make, and it's not a unique point, it's been made in every outlet out there, but I just wanted to draw attention to it again. How much better is sport with a raucous crowd in attendance? It's been missed so much from much of the sport we've had to endure at times over the last 18 months to 2 years. During this Premier League season, I almost stopped watching and lost interest because I'd put it down to the lack of atmosphere at the grounds, and the fake noise just wasn't doing it for me. But the atmosphere at that Switzerland and France game yesterday, there's that famous meme already going about the Swiss fan who was in tears after Lloris saved a Swiss penalty, and half an hour later he had his top off and he was screaming at the top of his voice, and it just summed up so much about what's great about supporting your country at a major tournament. So yeah, I'd have to say one of the highlights for me has been seeing the fans back in the stadiums and going absolutely batshit crazy. It's just it's great to see.
No, 100%. The link, like the crowds in Bucharest and Budapest, like they're full houses out there, and it makes such a difference. Like it just adds so much emotion to the occasion of the game, because there's kind of the highs and lows of the game they're echoed by 1,000%, because the fans are there to live the moment again. And you're 100% right. It's great to see fans back in there. I know I'm not going on about it now, but then we're looking here at our own championship the weekend just gone, and you have a couple of hundred fans smattered around stadiums. I think numbers are going to increase in the weeks ahead. There's a good few thousand going to head into Cork Park this weekend. But the sooner fans get back into the games, because it adds to the theatre of sport, because sport is entertainment at the end of it. And we're all entertained by what we saw on Monday night. And as you know, Jack, and all our listeners know, you can't beat a live sports game to go there just to be entertained by what happens. So touch wood, we fans back in GA matches, well, more fans back in the weeks and months ahead. But for now, the Euros are an absolute cracker, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to say as well, like that Spain own goal that you mentioned, chances are that would not have happened in an empty stadium, because the noise, whatever was going on, and that keeper said he just wasn't focused on the task in hand, and he let in one of the great own goals that we've ever seen. But anyway, let's leave the Euros chat there for now. And coming up after the break, we're going to talk to Ireland and Munster rugby legend Alan Quinlan.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
On Saturday at the Aviva Stadium, Andy Farrell's Ireland take on Japan in the first of two summer tests, and with two West Cork men, Gavin Coombes and Fineen Wycherley, in contention to pick up their first Irish caps, we thought we'd better draft in an expert to talk us through it. We'll be joined in a moment by Munster and Ireland legend Alan Quinlan. But Kieran, before we do, this could be a huge 2 weeks for West Cork rugby. We already know all about Whiddy Island's Tadhg Furlong, who's involved in the Lions tour, but Saturday could be special for the West Cork rugby fraternity.
Tadhg who? Tadhg Furlong? Yeah, it's all about Gavin Coombes and Fineen Wycherley, Jack, at this stage. The two local men in with the Ireland senior squad called up for the first time. We'll find out the team news for this Saturday's game against Japan at lunchtime on Thursday. So fingers crossed that we have good news on the Gavin and Fineen front end, that hopefully one, if not two of them, will get to make their senior debut against Japan at the Aviva this weekend. If not, there's always the game against the USA the following Saturday. So that's two games in this Vodafone Summer Series. So the odds are that we will see Gavin and Fineen in one of the two games, if not two of the games. And like we said before, Gavin is coming off the back of a sensational season. Like, that man has just, his reputation has gone through the roof. The youngest ever winner of the Munster's Men's Player of the Year award. The Skibbereen man has scored more tries in a single season than any Munster player ever before. And you think he's a 6'6" Bettsborough beast. Like, the man is a mountain. For him to get 15 tries in 17 starts is just, the stats are through the roof. And Fineen, of course, has been there for the last couple of years. He's over 60 Munster caps to his name. He's the man that famously caught up Johnny Sexton back in December 2018 in a Pro 14 game. Fineen has been a regular for Munster over the years, and he's looking for more game time as well. So they're two of the you wouldn't just say they're the up and coming stars of Munster rugby, but they're very much in the present as well. Kind of they've showed their worth to Munster this season, and now they're getting their chance, touch wood, with Ireland. The opportunities there for them to take a place in the squad going forward, with a couple of the bigger names gone off with the Lions to South Africa. So hopefully, like I said, we'll find out on Thursday if Gavin and Fineen will start against Japan this Saturday. And who better to chat to about Gavin and Fineen than the Munster and Ireland rugby legend Alan Quinlan. We're delighted now to be joined on the Star Sport podcast this week by Munster and Ireland legend Alan Quinlan to chat about the rise of Gavin Coombes and Fineen Wycherley, who we hope will make their Irish debuts in the weeks ahead. Welcome to the podcast, Alan.
Thanks, Kieran. My pleasure.
And before we talk about Gavin and Fineen, I just want to get your thoughts on why in the last couple of years we've seen such a growth of rugby in West Cork. I was looking at the list again there. Darren Sweetenham, Fineen and Josh Wycherley, first cousins then Gavin and Liam Coombes, John Hodnett from Ross Carberry, Jack Crowley from Inishannon, Cian Hurley from Clonakilty is another fella on the rise. Suddenly, this area that's known as football land, it's becoming a rugby territory.
Yeah, it's a hard one to put your finger on, Kieran, and know exactly why. I think there's obviously reasons. For me, when I started playing rugby for Munster, obviously coming from Tipperary and coming from a real traditional hurling area, and Tipperary people, as a Corkman, you'll know how passionate they are about their hurling. So I suppose when I started out, I was probably one of the first guys who made it onto the professional scene, started playing for Munster in Ireland. Then there was a number of others, Dennis Leamy, the Fogarty brothers, Trevor Hogan, Ray Hogan, Donnacha Ryan, Tommy O'Donnell. Lots of guys started, over the years started to play for Munster and come out of, different schools. Rockwell probably being the main rugby school in Tipperary. Guys started to get those pathways and avenues to go and play for Munster in Ireland. And, it was great to see. I think West Cork is there's a similar story going on there now in the last couple of years with a lot of these young players coming through. I think probably it's coupled with the fact that Munster, the success we had as players winning European Cups. I remember starting, when I started out with Munster, it was something new. Rugby only went professional in 1995. I signed my first contract in 97. It's well documented. One of the interpros, I think we played in 98 against Leinster in Limerick. There was 150 people at the game. You forward that on to 2009 in Croke Park when there's over 80,000 people. So the game has grown as a spectacle, as an event, and lots of people have gone on board, particularly supporters and fans who've loved the journey and people who supported us throughout that journey of trying to win European Cups in the late 90s, 2000s onwards. I think thousands and thousands of Munster people from all over the province going to the south of France and going all over the UK and stuff like that. And I would always meet people at these games before and after, and lots of them would be traditional diehard GA fans, and rugby fans maybe second. So, but they loved being part of that whole journey. So I suppose the appeal of that Munster jersey and the way rugby has grown in the province has been really, really big. I think first and foremost, I would have been a GA man. I always played rugby from a young age, but I would have been a GA man. And my ambition and one of my goals growing up was to try and play hurling for Tipperary. That doesn't mean that I still don't love hurling and love the GA as well. I do, but I suppose the pathway I took was one that I enjoyed and I started to get better at as the years went on over with rugby. And so I think young guys throughout the province now, in you look at someone like Jack O'Donoghue from Waterford as well, what he's achieved. Not many guys from Waterford have come through. Ben Cronin would have been there around my time. He got capped for Ireland as well. So I think that's one of the one of the strategies for Munster Rugby is to try and get into the more non-traditional rugby areas and get more players and maybe tap into athletes that are in those areas and try and improve them and hope that they get a bigger playing pool. What's happened in West Cork, I think, has just been nothing short of phenomenal, really. I think Darren Sweetnam was the most, he was probably the flag bearer and you know, coming from playing hurling for Cork and being such a talented hurling player, you know, and getting opportunities with Munster and Ireland. I suppose he's probably, some of these young lads growing up would have looked at what he's achieved and how he's achieved it. And then I suppose their love for rugby, like, you know, you look at Skibbereen and Clonakilty and places like that. You know, I would have played junior rugby with my club, Clanwilliam, when I was growing up. And probably when I was 17, 18, before I kind of made the move into Shannon, I played against Clonakilty many times and Skibbereen as a young lad on the junior team. And they were always, you know, incredibly passionate. I don't think I ever won a game down in Skibbereen. We won, you know, we great battles with Clonakilty many times. Played them in a Challenge Cup final. Played them in a couple of Munster Junior, you know, knockout games as well. And league games as well, obviously, you know, so we would have been down Skibbereen very regularly. And even when I didn't play, when I moved on to Shannon and Munster, I would still follow my junior club, Clanwilliam, down there. So loads of good rugby players there and loads of passion for those clubs as well. So it's not a huge surprise that, you know, it probably inevitably had to happen that some of these young lads would have said, well, I want to go on and play with Munster and Ireland. Then, of course, you've Bandon Grammar School and you know, the Wycherleys went to Roscrea. Fineen went to Roscrea and you know, won a Leinster Senior Schools Cup there. And so there's pathways and avenues. And I think what Munster Rugby have done, obviously, you know, I keep going back to my time, but, you know, there would have been development officers, you know, positioned around Tipperary to try and get rugby into the non-playing schools and see if you could unearth a player or two there and get them to join the local club. One example was Tommy O'Donnell. We had a guy over from New Zealand, probably in the early 2000s, playing rugby with Clanwilliam. He came traveling for a year and he got a job as a development officer and went into Tommy O'Donnell's school in Cahir in County Tipperary, and they'd never seen a rugby ball in the school. He was welcomed in and they wanted to try it, and you know, before long, Tommy O'Donnell was playing rugby in Clanwilliam, and then went on to, you know, be a star in that underage in Clanwilliam, and went on to play for Munster and Ireland, and had a great career. So I think that's helped the development officers that have probably identified the talent that's there. And then, of course, when you go into the school system, there's a good pathway there because they take their rugby seriously. And, you know, these guys are doing weights. They've been given all sorts of quality coaching and information and diets and all that kind of stuff. And I suppose one makes it, and a lot of other guys want to try and make it. And then when they have that talent, so that's probably what's happened, I think. You know, to try and to get the opportunity to be a professional rugby player as well that's something that a lot of youngsters want to do and they want to be part of. And I think, as I said, it's phenomenal what's happened in West Cork.
Rugby has certainly set its roots down in West Cork, and we're hoping out the next couple of weeks with the test against Japan and the USA that Gavin and Fineen will both get to make their senior debuts for Ireland, and that's another kind of flagging the ground moment for West Cork rugby. But looking at Gavin for a second, Alan, what an incredible season this man has had. The youngest ever winner of the Munster Men's Rugby Player of the Year award. He scored 15 tries in 22 games, and that's the most ever tries scored by a Munster player in a single season. He was absolutely sensational all the way through. What impressed you the most about Gavin?
I saw him a number of years ago in I think it was a trial match in Limerick. I think it was Munster A against an Irish, what could have been the Irish under-20 side or development side. And I remember watching that game. I went to the game at Thomond Park, and I remember watching. And the first thing that kind of jumped out at me was his size and his athleticism for a big guy. I thought that I was kind of saying at the time, geez, when you get a guy that big and that quick and athletic, and he moved really well, I wanted to see a little bit of niggle in him. I thought, where's the bit of, that little bit of niggle, that bit of attitude, if you like, that would really make him stand out. Because, I would have played and seen lots of big, strong, physical guys over the years that probably didn't have that little edge that you need to dominate and step out from the rest. I always remember Dennis Leamy when he came to training. Dennis wasn't the tallest guy in the world, but he was a real block of a guy, and he was 6'2". That's not small, but when you look at Gavin Coombes at 6'6", and he's probably 110, 115 kilos, he's a huge athlete. And John Hayes and myself were at training one day. It was one of the first sessions that Dennis Leamy came to, and I remember chatting to John saying, this guy will make it, and John Hayes agreed, because he came to that one of those first training sessions when we did a contact session and was ripping into people and had a real kind of edge to him and attitude amongst a lot of senior guys who would have been around for a long time. I probably had the opposite when I started, because I was quite nervous and maybe lacking that bit of self-confidence and self-belief, which can come in people, so that's not a bad thing. And I remember thinking, Leamy is the real deal, he's going to make it. And he did, obviously, and was a kind of an enforcer in that Munster pack who took no rubbish off anybody in the opposition. He was the one who was stepping up all the time. And that's the one thing that, that self-confidence, self-belief, and using your physicality in the right way, I think. And, when you're blessed with that size and that power, I think, that day he was just kind of a little bit standoffish, very talented. But what I've seen in the interim is, a real statement of intent that this guy is good enough to go and play for Ireland. He's an incredible talent. I still want him to be more physical and really dominate the opposition, but that'll come because he's still very young. I'm not advocating for him to be giving away penalties or getting into trouble like I did when I played. But, his rugby brain is fantastic. And to score 15 tries in 22 games, I know 4 of them were in the last game against Zebra. I just love the fact that he has an eye for the try line. He knows where to be. He's always watching. I kind of try and watch guys off the ball as well as on the ball and just see what they're doing and what they see and try and anticipate what they're seeing. And I think he's a real rugby brain. He reminds me a lot of Anthony Foley. Obviously, Axel would have went on and been a legend for Munster, Ireland, Shannon. And I played with Anthony for so long. He was a great friend. And I always admired his rugby brain, his ability to pop up at the right time in the right places. And I see similarities with Gavin Coombes. I just think, if you watch his eye line, he's always watching what's going on. He makes a carry, somebody else carries it, he's back up off the ground, and he's anticipating a bit of space or an opportunity in that defensive line. And, he backs it up then with power and athleticism. As I said, he's incredibly explosive. I think he's the full package. As I said, just probably, and it will come, it's that confidence. He's shown it this year with Munster. He, in the Pro 14 final against Leinster, he was the standout player. And Leinster had a dominant performance against Munster that day, but he was really, really good in a tough environment, tough situation. And that was the day I thought, this guy is ready. Get him into the Irish side, not just get him into the squad. He's ready to start for Ireland. And I'd be very excited about what the future holds for Gavin Coombes. He's obviously got to get a bit of luck and, stay injury free. You're always going to get some injuries, but just get a bit of luck in the injury front and keep his feet in the ground, because I think his attitude is good. And what I hear about him, he's a top bloke and he's continuously trying to learn. So I think he's a wonderful player. And given CJ Stander has left, I think it's a natural fit for him now to take that mantle, that famous number 8 jersey from Munster, and take it forward, and no better man to do that.
Johan van Grant said as much in the last couple of weeks that Gavin has what it takes to fill that CJ standard size hole that's now in the Munster team. Do you think Gavin can cushion the blow of the loss of CJ and take over that number 8 jersey for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, he can. Of course, I think he's what he's done in the last two or three seasons, the way he's improved. He's only going to get better, and he's going to get that confidence. And I think he's the full package, and he has that ability. And look, Kieran, you can have all the talent in the world, but you need the attitude and desire and the motivation, and you need to look after yourself right. It's not an easy gig being a professional rugby player. There's lots of ups and downs. The game is pretty physical. You've got to manage your body, manage your mind, all that kind of stuff. So he looks like he's very happy, and this is what he wants. So I think not alone can he do that for Munster, but he can do it for Ireland as well. That may not necessarily be as a number 8. It could be a 6 or 8, because obviously Caelan Doris is there. He's very talented as well. Jack Conan has come back into brilliant form. Max Deegan is someone who's been out injured for a while. So there's loads of competition for the Irish spots. But if he's starting for Munster and performing, I think Andy Farrell will want to get him into that Irish back row and starting. So of course he can. There's little things he's going to have to learn in the next while and learn on the run, which it's an unforgiving place, and there's a lot of demand and pressure to try and win trophies in Munster, and I think they've made a lot of progress forward. And I love the fact that there's I've always said this for a number of years, when you've young players coming through and they're learning at the coal face, and you may not be winning, which it ended up being a disappointing season for Munster, going out and losing the Pro 14 final and the quarter final in Europe. I think the last 16, I should say. I think that having the comfort of knowing that there's a lot of young players coming through, putting pressure, learning from that experience and that environment, bodes well for the future. And someone like Gavin Coombes, you can build a team around a guy like that. He's a great ball carrier. He's great footwork as well. So hopefully he can keep improving. It's not always guaranteed that you get to this level and that you accelerate on and become keep improving. I think he can. I think he has that ability, and like I said, he looks like he has that desire and that attitude to get better, and he deserves to be in the Irish squad now, and it'd be a great honour for him, for his club, and for West Cork, if and when he gets capped in a couple of weeks.
Another one of those West Cork young guns is Fineen Wycherley. Gavin seems to get all the headlines, but Fineen has been going about his business quietly for the last couple of years. It was December 2018 when he announced his arrival with Johnny Sexton in that famous game, and I suppose he just stood up to Johnny Sexton up in Thomond Park. But Fineen has already played over 60 games for Munster, and he was called into the Ireland squad for training before the delayed Six Nations games, I think last September, October. Like, he's another fella who's gone quietly about his business, but he's one to watch as well, Alan.
Yeah, he is, and he's done remarkably well. I think the fans and supporters love him because of probably that moment where he had that bit of a scuffle with Johnny Sexton. That's not trying to be disrespectful to Johnny Sexton, but I just think it kind of showed that this fella has an attitude and that he has an edge to him that you need as at times, and you need to stand up. And Johnny obviously is confrontational himself, and doesn't shirk or step back from anyone, and he's shown that, and that's why he's been such a brilliant player over the years for Ireland and Leinster. And I think we got to judge him on his overall play and what he's done. And as I said, he's become a regular contributor and starter for Munster. From his own perspective, I'd say he'd love to try and nail down a starting spot for those big games. He's still getting better. He's still developing, and he's done brilliantly. I think he can get better, and he's probably he probably has that more natural kind of edge that, you know, the likes of Dennis Leamy would have had. Dennis could control it in a very good way. I probably couldn't at times. And I like to see that in players where they're not afraid to, you know, to get up close and personal with people. A bit like me, I probably give away a few more penalties, but Fineen's got to be careful, you know, that you don't cross that line and you get it right. But that's the way he plays. He plays with his heart in his sleeve. He's a very physical player, gives it everything. And I love that about him. So, you know, it's a competitive area. When you think of John Klein and RJ Snyman, Tyke Byrne, you know, Billy Holland was around for a long time in Munster and brilliant for them. So, you know, he's probably a little bit frustrated that he's probably not getting enough of starts and more opportunities. But he's a big future with Munster as well. And for him to get called into the Irish squad is recognition that there's quality there, there's ability there. And this is a great opportunity for him to get into that environment and make a name for himself.
Or could you see Fineen nailing down a jersey? Like to see, you know, Billy Holland, Tommy O'Donnell, they're all departing. So there's a chance of more opportunities for Fineen next season. But where do you think he could become a regular in the big games?
Yeah, well, you see, it's difficult because with respect, he's 6'4". You know, a lot of the modern day second rows 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", you know, might be lacking a tiny little bit of height there in the second row. He's a big back row and not a huge second row. If he'd probably kill me for saying that, but he's a big back row and not a huge second row. I don't want to be telling anyone their business or where they should play, but I think you know, he's the perfect size as a back row. It's not always easy kind of making that transition and doing, you know, stepping into that back row slot, but becoming that utility player is not something you want to be. That you're a great player off the bench. It happened to me at times on different occasions with Ireland where I was kind of covering second row, back row, and you know, I wasn't the second row, but I could play there if needs be, if there was an injury or during the game. But I think it's something that obviously he's got to figure out with the coaches himself and with Johan van Graan from Munster, because obviously if he started playing as a number 6 and did that job there and did it on a fairly regularly, well then, you know, that probably would open the door a little bit more for Ireland. I think, as I said, the second row positions, rightly or wrongly, you know, different coaches will look at that height factor, that size factor, particularly when you're in Europe or if you're playing top class international. So I think he can play in the back row, no problem. We'll probably just need a little bit more experience there and get exposed to it at a really high competitive level with Munster, and that would probably open some doors for him. But as I said, I'm not going to tell him what he should or shouldn't do. I think we should just you know, applaud him for his work in the last couple of years and for getting into the Irish squad and getting an opportunity to become an international, which is you know, a phenomenal thing for him.
100%, Alan. A big couple of weeks ahead for Gavin and Fineen. Thank you so much for your time this morning, for joining us on the podcast.
My pleasure, Kieran.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Bandon-man Richie Holland has been making quite the name for himself in soccer coaching circles over the last number of years, and he's currently assistant manager to Phil Healy at Cork City. He caught up with Ger McCarthy to chat about that role and his career in coaching to date.
Okay, welcome to the Southern Star podcast, and we're absolutely delighted to have somebody who has worked extensively in UEFA coaching and FAI coaching and is very, very prominent, not just in Bandon, where he started out, and not just now with Cork City, but Richie Holland. It's a good news story for him because Richie is now joining Phil Healy at Cork City and will be helping him for the remainder of the coming season, taking over as assistant manager from John Cotter. So Richie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Ger. Great to be here.
Good to see you again. First of all, hearty congratulations on the appointment. When did you get word of it? and how surprised and how delighted were you to get the offer?
Well, to be honest, myself and Colin, as you know, probably would have a good relationship from working in the academy in the past, Ger. So probably would have been in contact with Colin maybe weekly, and stuff like that, just checking in and stuff like that. We just would have many conversations and stuff like that. And I suppose that there was an opportunity that for me to come up through my previous role that I could maybe have jumped into Cork City. So obviously I expressed an interest to Colin, and we kind of worked from there then,
Yeah, because your background, you hold an elite UEFA A license. You have extensive experience of coaching both at Kennedy Cup level back in 2017 with the Cork Schoolboys League, who you took to a semi-final, by the way, the Kennedy Cup. And I always bring that up because I know how difficult the Kennedy Cup is as a tournament to win or compete in. And since then, you've moved on through the various FAI academies in Mahon. You've worked in Blarney, so you've been coaching for quite a long time. But I would suggest Bandon is the place that's at your heart. Bandon AFC has always been the one that you seem to keep. You seem to be always involved in. How important was the experience you got there for where you are now?
Bandon's always been a huge part of my life, even since I was a kid. I suppose going right back to the start, it probably gave me that discipline and that hunger and love for the game, playing and to be honest, I would have, as a player, would have been kind of, let's say, interested in coaching sessions, and I suppose I would have been a good personality in the dressing room and stuff like that. So coaching was like something probably even at an early age I was thinking about. And to be honest with you, I took my first coaching role at Bandon. I think I'd say I must have been 18 at the time. So I was a month over age for the under 18s. I ended up being their manager. So that was my first experience in coaching. And I think from there, then I went on and started my education and stuff like that. So I've basically worked at every level in the club game in terms of in Cork and stuff. I think you forgot there to mention yourself. I don't know, do you know yourself? I was a part of the West Cork Kennedy Cup as well.
I was coming to that.
Yeah,
I wanted to focus on the Bandon first, but you've had.
I suppose that I was working different levels and stuff, but it was Bandon that was probably always the one that gave me the grounding and that foundation. And look, it was a great honor for me a number of years back to actually manage a senior team as well, and have success there as well. Obviously I have family members that are deeply ingrained into the club and so on. Even my brother at the moment is the senior manager, Sean. So it's kind of it's a big part of our lives and that. So look, Bandon's been huge and always will be. I know I'll still go to the games and watch the games and stuff like that, and so it's a big part for me.
How would the 2019 FAI Intermediate Cup run that Bandon went on, would that be a highlight?
Yeah, we went to
the last 32. Yeah,
the last 32. We went up to Glebe, I think, in
Dublin.
In North Dublin. Yeah, that was a highlight. Yeah, we won some good games in the early rounds and that. When we went up to Dublin, we actually put in a good performance. The scoreline on the day itself didn't do the game justice at all. It was just it was one of those games at the end. But no, it was a really good highlight. I think getting promotion from the second division was always the main objective, because the club had gone to the heights of getting to the Premier Division, which was really, really great. We've done it twice under Niall Regan first, and then it was Peter Jones then the second time. After winning the league in the first division. But I think for a club like Bandon in West Cork in the Munster Senior League, for us to be playing Premier Division was huge at the time and stuff like that. And I think it took its toll. It was a really big push to get there. And when we got there, I just think that the team was aging and stuff like that. And I just think it didn't work out for us up there and stuff like that. So then there was 2 relegations in a row that followed. So I was player coach, basically, then player manager, if you want to call it, that went in, and I just said that the main objective is get back up to the first division. So we've got that platform, hopefully, again, to make that step up to the Premier in a few years. There's young players there at this present moment working with Sean and that, so they're in a bit of a transition at the moment. So look, hopefully they'll get back up there again.
Can I ask, as a coach, from your experience with Cork, with the West Cork Schoolboys League at a tournament like the Kennedy Cup, and then with Bandon, do you learn more about yourself as a coach when you get relegated? And do you learn more about your players?
Well, I was fortunate enough. I was a part of the playing when we got relegated and stuff. Let's say, you know, being from a player's perspective, being relegated, it's not nice, you know, especially as I mentioned earlier, when the club was so it's so a big part of all of our lives, really, like in the family and stuff like that, you know. So it wasn't nice from a player perspective, but as a coaching perspective, let's say in the Kennedy Cups and stuff like that, you do learn a lot more. I to be honest with you, the West Cork experience really stood to me. I think when I took over the actual Cork team, you know, I worked with Conor Yule and Martin Henwood there at the time and stuff like that. And I suppose I was young at the time. That was, I think, 2010. I think it was, Ger, if I remember right.
2009, but yeah, go on, yeah.
Yeah, 2009, 2010, yeah, I think, yeah. And with some good young players, but as you know yourself, West Cork would always be the underdogs, you know. So you probably get those fighting and that kind of, let's say, you know, everyone thinks we're not going to win and all that kind of stuff, you know. Like, it's, you kind of have to think a little bit differently there, you know, and you know, you get that fighting spirit there, you know, and you learn how to win games differently. Whereas with Cork, I suppose, Joe, Cork would have a talented squad and there's a lot of expectation and stuff like that. But when you come to knockout games, I felt my experience, let's say, with West Cork stood to me, you know, winning games, let's say, when you're not playing so well and so on, you know. So like that was a big learning experience for myself, you know, and it really helped me, let's say, going into the Cork role, you know.
Before we talk about the Cork City role and working with Colin, you've brushed shoulders with some pretty impressive excuse me, coaches and managers down through your time, Mick Conroy, Stuart Ashton. And what can you just briefly outline the work that you did? Because you did a player development course. You were coordinator for the FAI Academy in Blarney for a period of time in 2020. What did that entail? And I know that's something that was very important to you, but what did it actually entail and what did you get out of it?
Well, first of all, it's a great experience working full-time football, you know, and coordinating a program like that is massive. I would have done the course myself as a player, but about 14 years ago, I think it was. So I knew of the course. I knew how valuable it was, you know. So even for me as a player at the time, there was only one course in Cork, and I was actually playing here for Cork City at the time as well at under 21 level. So it really, really helped me, you know, push on and so on, you know. The one thing I would say, it gives people an opportunity to get back into education as well. I think that's kind of lost. I think people look at it just as lads going out training and stuff like that, but there is an education element to it as well, which is huge, you know. It's like we've had so many success stories. Obviously on the pitch, you'll have lads that will go on and play for your Cork Cities and Coves and they'll go on and maybe get an international cap and so on, underage or whatever. But there's so many stories there as well of lads getting back into, let's say, UCC, or, you know, they're gone on to do a degree or whatever, you know, that probably they mightn't have done, let's say, if they didn't start with our course, you know. So I think there's both sides to it, and I think it's so important for people to know that as well, you know. I know the lads there, they do a great job, you know, and they run a tight ship there in terms of the training and the education, you know. So it's a great course for any young person, let's say, that maybe isn't, if you're coming straight out of school, let's say, you might be a little bit unsure in terms of what course should I do or whatever. And if you're into football and you want to give football a go full time and stuff like that, then it's a great course because you keep up your education as well, you know.
Brilliant, yeah, and it's a positive and it's a footballing aspect to it, but there's a life aspect to it too, which is good to hear. Assistant manager, Cork City, League of Ireland club. I love the way you smile when I say it, like, because you have to kind of say it to yourself a couple of times first. Like John Cotter, sorry, as everyone knows him. You know John Cotter, and you know what big shoes these are to fill. But let's be positive and let's be honest about it. You've got a great manager that you're working with, Colin, you know, and the two of you work very well at under 19 level, and that's what gives me hope as a Cork City supporter, that dynamic and how that works hopefully will transfer onto the pitch over time. You need time to obviously bed in. But what is it about yourself and Colin and working with Colin? What is it about him as a coach that you've experienced with him, and why is it that you think you work so well together?
There's a lot of things. There's so many things. To be honest, Ger, like myself and Colin would have probably started together in the academy the same year, let's say. So it was kind of, I don't know, we just crossed paths, and we were basically in the same team starting off or whatever, and it was just a relationship that just grew and grew. Obviously, there's lots of trust there and that, but I think for Colin, first of all, as a player, has had a great career. You know, very unassuming in a lot of ways, but he's had a great career. He's played for his country. He's played Premier League. He's played for Celtic and so on. His knowledge of the game is fantastic. You know, like that's the one thing I would say. You know, he's constantly thinking. He's constantly looking to evolve as a coach, and obviously the team as well and stuff like that. You know, but the professionalism as well is probably something that I probably didn't get with other experiences I've had. You know, when I came in here first, it's just obviously because Colin's worked at such a high level that the standards he sets around the place. I've even just said it here. I only came in Tuesday morning. Actually, it was my first morning, but I've been away from here for 6 months, and the difference in the environment here is crazy. I couldn't believe it. Like,
in what way?
The small things, the training pitch, for example. No, the training pitch is as good as what you get. The players' room, the food that the players have. Let's say the gym. There's a little foot tennis table, if you want to call it, down the back. It's like what I would say for any player or any staff member coming in here. It's a really positive environment to come into. You know, I think that he's turned the training ground into a real professional environment, and I just think that the players are really lucky that they're in this environment. You know.
As assistant manager, Richie, what do you want to bring to the role? What is it that fundamentally? I mean, you're an assistant, obviously. When you come in, Colin will be looking at the team. He'll be taking your advice on pretty much everything, I'd imagine. He knows how you work and you know how he works. But what do you want to bring to this role? And in the immediate future, and let's not talk long term, because it's fair to say Cork City are in transition. That's not a get out clause. That's a reality. There's a lot of young players that need time to bed into play League of Ireland football, especially in the first division, which is very difficult. So what are you going to bring, and what do you want to bring in the immediate term?
First of all, I think before anything regarding coaching, Ger, I think it's personality as well. I think that's so important. You know, when you work with people first, you know, and obviously you're trying to develop players, obviously, but you know, you're seeing these people every day, and you know, working with them firsthand. You know, it's just getting to know these lads. Look, I know a lot of the lads from the academy and stuff like that, but there are a good few lads here that would be new to me as well and stuff like that. So first and foremost is creating that, you know, coach-athlete relationship, let's call it, you know, where, you know, that there's an element of trust there, and that. And obviously I want to bring my own experiences from coaching and playing to an extent as well to the management team. But I go back to, I just think that we work well together because we're open, you know, that we're open to new ideas and so on. And look, as I say, it's a great environment here for the players and even for the staff and stuff like that, you know. So for us, it's more about trying to get the best out of the players every day, that they work hard, that, you know, in time. I think you mentioned the word transition. Yeah, I agree with you, in a way, but in time that we see improvements, you know, that we see improvements on the pitch. And we know the first division is a different type of division, let's say, that the Cork City fans are used to, but it really is a physical league, and for us it's about adapting to that and also trying to bring out our personality on the football as well, you know, because Cork fans, look, I've gone to games since I was a young lad, you know, and watching the successful teams and stuff like that, and Cork fans want to see players get on the ball, and they want to see players play, but they also want to see the other side of it as well, that there's a bit of heart and there's a bit of desire to play for the club, you know. So it's about just working on that every single day and trying to improve, you know.
You're not coming in at an opportune moment, shall we say, because of the league position. It is a results-based business, as you said. You would be hoping over time that the work that yourself and Colin put in on the training pitch will transfer and get those results bit by bit. But long term, I mean, obviously Cork City fans and yourself included want to get back up to the Premier Division. That's where you want to be, playing the Shamrock Rovers, the St. Pat's, the Derry Cities, the Dundalks, even though they're playing not doing too well at the minute. But that's the long-term goal. Is it an achievable goal from where you're sitting already, from what you've seen?
Yeah, I do. 100%. I think it is 100%. I wouldn't have taken the job, Ger. Look, obviously it's a great honor to be here and stuff like that. But if I felt that I couldn't contribute to improving the club, let's say going forward, I would have left it to someone else. I think obviously coming in, as you say, with Colin and stuff like that, and then as I mentioned already, the environment that's here already, I think it's ready made. I think for us to make the jump back up. If it's this year, next year, however long it takes, look, we are in a little bit of a transition period, as I say, but I've no doubt this club needs to be back in the Premier. Like the fans here, the fan base, I say, it's religion to some of the fans, this club, and I know the expectation that is there. I also know that we're probably not the same team as what we were in 2017, and I think anyone sitting on the outside knows that as well. But these lads are coming in and they're learning every day. They want to improve. They're all great lads. So look, the performance last week, I think, was a great platform for us to go on. Obviously, the game tomorrow night is going to be a difficult game, but they all are. So for us, it's about getting the team ready for it, and hopefully that we can go up there and get 3 points.
I can hear the enthusiasm. I can see the passion. And I understand. I know I've watched. We've spoken before at various stages of your career for newspapers and local newspapers. This is a different platform. It's another level up. But you've proven with your coaching and your badges and getting the elite UEFA A license that you're committed to this. And this is very, very important to you. Obviously, family first, but this is the most important thing after that. I know you're going to put every ounce you've got into it and Colin into it, but it's a difficult job. Richie, it really is. It's not an easy job you're in. I know you accept that, and I think is patience and a bit of trust from the fans, even at this time of the season when everybody wants to be playing top of the table football, but it may not necessarily be possible at the moment. I'm not saying you're asking for time, but that little bit of patience while you get things sorted yourself and Colin manage to get your messages across and hopefully results improve. That's going to be key, especially with so many young players in that first team squad. Yeah,
look, one thing you're going to say, look, they're young lads, right? But some of them know, I think Colin made reference actually a couple of weeks ago, some of them know are 20, 21 and stuff like that, right? But they're probably at the age now where it's time now to step up a little bit more and so on, and the lads accept that as well, and I think last week what you saw is a hungry team and a team that wants to be on the front foot and compete and, entertain the fans, because I think, look, that's what it's about too at the end of the day, when the fans come into Turner's Cross, they want to see good football, so that's part of it as well, yeah, it's a difficult job. Look, a person in my position, let's say, that might have had a secure job and stuff like that, which I had, I could have stayed in the job and stuff like that, but for me, this is more about
pushing yourself,
not regretting it, let's say, in years to come. Let's put it that way. I think I spoke to my wife about it and when the opportunity was there, and I suppose when I was a kid, I always wanted to be a professional footballer. It didn't quite happen and stuff like that. But I used to go to the games and be a fan and that or whatever as well. And I was there 2005 on the pitch, and obviously, being involved in the youth setup when the double happened as well there in 2017 and stuff like that. They're great memories to have, and I just feel with the managers that we have and let's say the club, that the size of the club, I just feel that there is an opportunity here just to get the club back up at some point and get that success back in and create my own, let's say, lifetime memories, be a part of the history. There's been so many top people that have been involved in this club over in the last number of years, and for me to be a part of it now is great, and it's something that, maybe I thought might never happen, but I'm in this position now, and I'd say, Chad, I'll give it my best, and it's going to be every day, work hard every day. I know the way football works and that as well, but for me, it was too good of an opportunity to say no to,
Well, everybody here in the Southern Star, everybody in West Cork and all around Cork wishes you nothing but success. I know what you're going to bring to the job, and I know you're going to make a success of it. I just hope that translates sooner rather than later, and that you and Cork City start moving up that table, and I've no doubt that you absolutely will.
Ger, thanks a million. Cheers.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Kieran, before we wrap things up, another packed edition of the Southern Star sports section. This week, 24 pages. What can readers expect?
It's that time of the year when sport is hitting top gear. So there's a lot going on in this week's Star Sport out on Thursday. We have 2 pages on the Women's Division 1 Football League final played at Croke Park last Saturday, when unfortunately Cork came up short against Dublin. This Dublin team is quite phenomenal at the moment. They're going for 5 in a row in the All-Ireland series, and they're now championship and league winners. They were just too strong for Cork last weekend. No complaints whatsoever. Ger McCarthy was our man on the ground up there, so we have a 2-page special on the game. Ger's given us his comment. He's picking out 5 Cork players who impressed during the league. He got reaction from Martino O'Brien on the game, as well as head coach Paddy O'Shea, so that's well worth checking out. Also, the Cork Camogie team had a good win against Tipperary in the Munster Senior Camogie Championship semi-final last weekend, and they're through to the final against Limerick this weekend. So we have an interview with Paddy Murray and all the news from that. The GA season is picking up right now, and for Argadine Rangers, they have a huge tie against Glen Rovers coming up this weekend. Argadine lost to Milan in the intermediate A hurling championship round robin relegation series last weekend, so they must beat Glen Rovers this weekend to keep their intermediate A hurling status. So we have a reporting reaction from that. Also in local GA, the Carberry Under-21A Football Championship, always a blue ribbon tournament, kicked off or threw in last week with a incredible game there. It was ended up with a win for Clonakilty, but only after extra time. Conor Daly was the hero for Clon. He got 3-3. So we've full reaction and comment from that. And there's a load more going on besides that. Like I said, it's a packed sports section this week. And the Cork Hurlers are out against Limerick in championship action this weekend. Micheál O'Sullivan's Inside Track column is looking at the pretenders to Dublin's throne in the championship. So there's something to everyone, from soccer to rugby to motorsport to road bowling to athletics. You name it, we have it this Thursday.
Great stuff, Kieran. And that will, of course, be in shops across West Cork and beyond from Thursday morning. But if you can't make it to the shops, you can always subscribe online to our digital edition. Just go to www.southernstar.ie/e-paper. Just to give a quick mention as well to another project that has just gone live on the Southern Star digital channels. That's episode 2 of The Big Story. It's bringing back the tourists. It's a new digital series from the Southern Star. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and in the second edition, we are looking at the return of tourism to West Cork post-pandemic. So that's worth checking out if you're interested in finding out more about that. Thanks for listening to the Star Sport podcast. We'll be back at the same time next week. If you enjoy these shows, please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Slán Tamil.